At 94, Clint Eastwood reveals who he doesn't want at his funeral. Clint Eastwood, born Clinton Eastwood Jr. on May 31, 1930. In San Francisco, California, is a legendary figure in American cinema whose career spans over 7 decades. Raised during the Great Depression, Eastwood grew up in a modest household, moving frequently due to his father's job as a steelworker. These early life experiences helped forge his rugged individualism and work ethic, traits that would later become defining elements of his on-screen persona and personal philosophy. After graduating from high school in Oakland, he held various jobs, including lumberjack, lifeguard, and gas station attendant. Before being drafted into the U.S. Army during the Korean War, his time in the military not only built his discipline, but also introduced him to the world of film as he began associating with aspiring filmmakers and actors while stationed at Fort Ord. Eastwood's entry into Hollywood was serendipitous yet marked by perseverance. He began his acting career in the 1950s with minor, often uncredited roles in B-movies. His breakthrough came in the late 1950s when he was cast as Rowdy Yates in the popular television western Rawhide. Though initially considered a secondary character, Eastwood's charisma and stoic presence quickly made him a fan favorite. This visibility paved the way for his rise to international stardom in the 1960s, particularly through his iconic roles in Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy, A Fistful of Dollars, 1964, For a Few Dollars More, 1965, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, 1966. These spaghetti westerns revolutionized the western genre and introduced Eastwood's trademark character, the laconic, morally ambiguous anti-hero with a piercing glare and minimal dialogue. As his acting career blossomed, Eastwood became synonymous with rugged masculinity, stoic resilience, and frontier justice. In the 1970s, he solidified his status as a cultural icon by portraying Dirty Harry Callahan, a tough, no-nonsense San Francisco cop who became a symbol of American grit and law enforcement during a time of social upheaval. The film Dirty Harry, 1971, and its sequels captured the public's imagination, its combining action, social commentary, and Eastwood's gravelly intensity. These roles showcased not only his acting prowess, but also his understanding of the zeitgeist, appealing to audiences disillusioned by bureaucracy and rising crime. However, Eastwood was not content to remain in front of the camera alone. He made a successful transition to directing, beginning with Play Misty for Me in 1971, a psychological thriller that demonstrated his adept storytelling skills and artistic vision. Over the decades, Eastwood developed a reputation as a masterful director and producer praised for his economical shooting style, emotional restraint, and ability to draw powerful performances from his actors. He directed and starred in numerous critically acclaimed films, including Unforgiven 1992, which won him Academy Awards for Best Director and Best Picture, cementing his place among the great auteurs of modern cinema. Unforgiven offered a revisionist take on the Western genre, challenging the mythos that Eastwood himself had helped build and revealing a more reflective, morally complex narrative. His directorial range is remarkable, from poignant dramas like Million Dollar Baby, 2004, which earned him his second pair of Oscars, to historical and biographical films such as Letters from Iwo Jima, 2006, Gran Torino, 2008, American Sniper, 2014, and Richard Jewell, 2019. Eastwood has consistently explored themes of heroism, identity, redemption, and the American experience. His ability to tackle deeply human stories with subtlety and in respect has earned him accolades from critics and audiences alike. Unlike many Hollywood figures, Eastwood has maintained creative control over his projects, often working with lean budgets and tight shooting schedules, earning admiration for his professionalism, efficiency, and artistic integrity. Beyond his contributions to film, Clint Eastwood has led a multifaceted life that includes stints as a composer, businessman, and politician. A passionate jazz aficionado, he has composed music for several of his films and championed jazz musicians throughout his career. From 1986 to 1988, he served as mayor of Carmel, Bethesda, California, showcasing his interest in civic engagement and local governance. In business, he's been involved in real estate, restaurants, and a successful production company, Malpaso Productions, which has produced the majority of his films since the 1970s. On December 19, 1953, Clint Eastwood entered into his first marriage with Margaret Neville Maggie Johnson, a model and secretary whom he met on a blind date arranged by friends. At the time, Eastwood was still an aspiring actor with few credits to his name, and their union marked the beginning of a decades-long relationship that would span both Eastwood's rise to international fame and many personal ups and downs. Their marriage weathered numerous challenges, including Eastwood's long absences while filming and his reputation for romantic entanglements outside the marriage. Despite this, Maggie remained with Eastwood through the critical early years of his acting career, including his breakout role in the television series Rawhide and his subsequent success with Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy of spaghetti westerns. In the 1960s, together, Eastwood and Maggie had 2 children. Their son, Kyle Eastwood, was born in 1968 and would go on to become a respected jazz musician and composer, contributing music to several of his father's films. Their daughter, Allison Eastwood, born in 1972, followed in her father's footsteps into the entertainment industry, becoming an actress, director, and fashion model. Allison appeared in several of Clint's films, including Tightrope 1984 and Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil 1997. And she later directed the feature film Rails and Ties 2007. Despite their shared history and children, Eastwood and Johnson's marriage became increasingly strained, reportedly due to his extramarital affairs and a growing emotional distance between the two. After years of separation and speculation, they formally divorced in 1984. The divorce settlement was significant, reflecting Eastwood's growing wealth and status by that time. Johnson is reported to have received between $25 million and $30 million, which made headlines as one of Hollywood's most substantial settlements at the time. Years later, Eastwood married for a second time, this time to Dina Ruiz, a television news anchor more than 30 years his junior. The two first met in 1993 when Ruiz was assigned to interview Eastwood for a segment on Unforgiven. It's a critically acclaimed Western that won him Academy Awards for both Best Director and Best Picture. Their professional encounter soon developed into a personal relationship, and the couple married on March 31, 1996. In a private ceremony held at Clint's own estate in Carmel, Bethesda, California, where he had also served as mayor in the 1980s. That same year, Eastwood and Ruiz welcomed a daughter, Morgan Eastwood. Born in December 1996, unlike some of Eastwood's other children, Morgan has largely stayed out of the spotlight, although she did make occasional appearances alongside her parents, including on the 2012 reality show Mrs. Eastwood and Company, which focused on Dina's life and featured members of her family. Despite efforts to present a unified public image, the marriage eventually faltered. And in August 2013, Ruiz publicly revealed that the couple had been living separately for some time. The divorce was finalized in 2014, marking the end of Eastwood's second formal marriage. Throughout his life, Clint Eastwood has been known not only for his iconic film roles and directorial achievements, but also for his complex personal life, particularly his relationships and children. In addition to Kyle, Allison, and Morgan, Eastwood is known to have fathered at least 5 other children with various women, although he has never publicly confirmed the total number of his offspring. Among them are Kimberlyn Eastwood, born in 1964, from an earlier relationship with dancer Roxanne Tunis, and Scott Eastwood, born in 1986, who has built a successful acting career of his own and closely resembles his father in both appearance and screen presence. Eastwood's other known children include Catherine Reeves, Francesca Eastwood, and Lori Murray, the latter of whom was adopted by another family and only later reconnected with her biological father. Despite having a large and sometimes complicated family dynamic, Eastwood has largely refrained from speaking in depth about his personal relationships or children in public, preferring to maintain a degree of privacy. Nevertheless, his many children have occasionally appeared at events with him, suggesting ongoing relationships with several of them. The mystery surrounding his exact number of children and the timeline of his relationships has only added to Eastwood's enigmatic public image, reinforcing his persona as a private man of few words, even off-screen. At 94, Clint Eastwood reveals who he doesn't want at his funeral. Now a towering 94 years old, legendary actor and director Clint Eastwood has spent over 7 decades building one of the most formidable careers in Hollywood history. From his early days as a laconic cowboy on Rawhide to his iconic roles in Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns and his later reinvention as a master director with films like Unforgiven, $1 Million Baby, and Gran Torino, Eastwood has become a symbol of rugged masculinity, individualism, and old-school values. As he approaches the twilight of his life, Eastwood has become increasingly reflective about his legacy, his beliefs, and the people he wants and doesn't want to honor him when he's gone. In a candid moment, Eastwood reportedly shared a surprising list of people he hopes will not attend his funeral due to years of ideological clashes, personal grievances, or deep philosophical differences. Among those he mentioned, John Wayne, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hanks, Spike Lee, Michael Moore, and Sandra Locke. Though both Eastwood and Wayne are towering figures in American cinema, especially in the Western genre, their relationship was notoriously strained. Wayne reportedly disliked the morally ambiguous characters Eastwood often portrayed, particularly in films like High Plains Drifter, which Wayne thought sullied the nobility of the American cowboy. Eastwood once sent Wayne a script, hoping to collaborate, but Wayne dismissed it, saying the film was perverse and didn't reflect the heroism he believed should define the Western. Eastwood, though respectful of Wayne's legacy, felt the Duke was out of touch with the more complex and realistic stories he wanted to tell. Though Wayne died in 1979, Eastwood is said to have remarked that if Wayne were somehow able to show up at his funeral, he'd prefer he stayed away, symbolizing the ideological gap that existed between them to the end. While both men have worked with Martin Scorsese and are Oscar-winning powerhouses in their own right, Clint Eastwood reportedly finds DiCaprio's outspoken climate activism and political stances grating. Eastwood, who has long identified as a libertarian with conservative leanings, although Wayne once criticized Hollywood elites for being too politically correct and obsessed with virtue signaling, DiCaprio, known for his high-profile environmental speeches at the United Nations and his private jet travel, which critics call hypocritical, represents to Eastwood the kind of Hollywood hypocrisy he's grown increasingly weary of. Despite directing DiCaprio in J. Edgar 2011, Eastwood is believed to view him as emblematic of a younger Hollywood he no longer understands or respects. One of America's most beloved actors, Tom Hanks is often seen as a wholesome, all-American figure. However, Eastwood and Hanks, despite working together on Sully 2016, allegedly have very different worldviews. Eastwood is known for his terse, no-nonsense attitude and his preference for minimal takes and fast shooting schedules, while Hanks is famously collaborative and meticulous. Politically, Hanks is a vocal Democrat who has supported causes and politicians Eastwood has criticized. More than politics, however, Eastwood may have felt that Hanks's public image as America's dad doesn't sit well with his own grittier, more skeptical view of American culture and institutions. Hanks's presence at his funeral, he supposedly remarked, would feel out of tune with the hard edges of the life he led. There's no love lost between Eastwood and director Spike Lee, who publicly criticized Eastwood in 2008 over his war films, Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima, accusing him of failing to include black soldiers in depictions of World War II. Eastwood fired back, arguing that historical accuracy had dictated those casting choices and accused Lee of shutting up rather than stirring unnecessary controversy. The spat grew heated and drew media attention, becoming a rare public feud between two top directors. Eastwood, who values control and dislikes being second-guessed, reportedly sees Lee as a divisive figure whose presence would represent a kind of performative activism that Eastwood has no patience for. Perhaps the most predictable inclusion on Eastwood's hypothetical no-show list, Michael Moore and Eastwood have clashed directly in the past. In 2005, Moore criticized Eastwood's American Sniper for glorifying violence and promoting a jingoistic view of war. Eastwood, in turn, once said that if Moore ever came near him with a camera, "I'd kill him," a quote he later claimed was said in jest, but one that revealed the extent of their animosity. Moore's brash style of documentary filmmaking, coupled with his fierce anti-gun, anti-war stances, stands in direct contrast to Eastwood's reverence for American soldiers, Second Amendment rights, and individualist values. The idea of Moore delivering eulogies or tributes at his funeral, Eastwood is rumored to have said, would be the ultimate irony. The most emotionally charged name on the list is undoubtedly Sondra Locke, Eastwood's former romantic partner and frequent co-star. The two shared a deeply complicated 14-year relationship that ended in a bitter and public legal battle. Locke accused Eastwood of emotional abuse and career sabotage, filing multiple lawsuits against him that dragged on for years. While Eastwood settled out of court, the rift between them never healed. Though Locke passed away in 2018, Eastwood has reportedly said that if there were any way for spirits to haunt the living, he would hope Locke would not hover around his final rites. Her presence, he believed, would bring up too many unresolved emotions and would be a reminder of a painful chapter in his life he prefers to leave buried. In the end, Clint Eastwood remains as fiercely independent and unapologetic as ever. As he nears the end of a long and storied life, his thoughts about legacy, loyalty, and integrity continue to be guided by the same principles that made him a Hollywood icon. His hypothetical funeral, it seems, would not just be a celebration of a career, but also a final act of drawing clear lines between those he respected and those he did not. Clint Eastwood has been deeply dedicated to health and fitness since his teenage years, cultivating a disciplined lifestyle that would remain a defining feature throughout his long and successful career. Even in his youth, Eastwood was known for his impressive physical conditioning, favoring regular workouts and healthy eating habits long before such routines became trendy in Hollywood. His commitment to wellness stood in stark contrast to the typical hard-partying image associated with many rising actors of his generation. During the late 1950s and early 1960s, while starring as Rowdy Yates on the hit television Western Rawhide, Eastwood's muscular physique and clean-cut appearance earned him considerable attention, not just from fans, but also from fitness enthusiasts and health publications. His body became a topic of public interest, and he was frequently featured in magazines and journals that focused on health and personal well-being. One such feature appeared in the August 1959 issue of TV Guide, where Eastwood was prominently photographed performing push-ups, showcasing both his physical strength and the daily discipline that fueled it. Alongside the photographs, Eastwood shared practical fitness advice rooted in his personal regimen. He encouraged readers to embrace a balanced, natural diet, emphasizing the importance of consuming generous amounts of fresh fruit and raw vegetables. He was also a strong proponent of taking daily vitamins to supplement nutrition and advised people to steer clear of excessive sugar, particularly sugary beverages like soda, which he believed contributed to energy crashes and long-term health problems. In addition, Eastwood warned against the overconsumption of carbohydrates and discouraged the habitual use of alcohol, especially in large quantities. His focus on moderation, preventive health, and functional fitness foreshadowed the modern wellness movement decades ahead of its mainstream acceptance. Eastwood's health-conscious mindset became even more resolute following a deeply personal tragedy, the unexpected death of his father, Clint Eastwood Sr., from a heart attack in 1970 at the age of 64. The event was described by Eastwood's longtime friend and collaborator Fritz Maynes as the only bad thing that ever happened to him in his life. This sudden loss shocked Eastwood to his core, especially because his paternal grandfather had lived well into his 90s. The contrast between his father's early death and his grandfather's longevity made a lasting impression on him. It not only reinforced Eastwood's commitment to healthy living, but also seemed to catalyze a shift in his professional outlook. From that point onward, Eastwood became noticeably more driven and industrious, approaching his film projects with heightened urgency and precision. He developed a reputation for shooting quickly and efficiently, often wrapping productions well ahead of schedule and under budget. His discipline on set mirrored the consistency of his personal habits, reflecting a man determined to maximize both his time and his vitality. Interestingly, despite his abstention from hard liquor and general avoidance of excessive drinking, Eastwood demonstrated an appreciation for social spaces and community by co-founding the Hog's Breath Inn, a pub located in the picturesque coastal town of Carmel Beaches, California, in 1971. The establishment was designed with a rustic, English-style ambience, complete with wood-paneled interiors and a cozy, relaxed atmosphere. It quickly became a local favorite, frequented by tourists and residents alike, and stood as a testament to Eastwood's entrepreneurial spirit and affection for the Carmel community. Though he chose not to indulge heavily in alcohol himself, Eastwood understood the value of creating a welcoming environment where others could unwind and socialize.